Today on the podcast, I want to talk about some really interesting AI new features out of Google. So, of course, Google has their Google's Search Generative Experience. They call it SGE. I think a lot of people are just going to call it like AI on Google Search. But in any case, they have decided to elevate their AI integrations by adding image generation and some enhanced drafting features. So essentially, you can, like while you're on Google and you're asking it some questions, you can get it to generate images, which are made by Google and their own AI model, which is really interesting because this means a number of things. One of the biggest implications, I think, is that Google essentially now is a competitor to Midjourney. We always kind of knew they'd go in this direction, but DALL-E 3, Midjourney, all of these other ones, they're going to move in that direction. I think as we start seeing more people in more companies essentially building out more types of media, audio, video, it's going to get to the point where Google also is forced to get into all of those same areas because anything that gets added to Bing is going to need to get added to Google. So this is a feature that Bing previously had, and they used, they used OpenAI's DALL-E 3 to do this. And now, of course, this same kind of feature is included in ChatGPT itself. But all of that aside, I think this is a very interesting time to talk about some of the implications that are going to happen now that this is out, and, the technology that Google is essentially, leaning on in order to make all of these new enhancements that there's a bunch of other ones. In any case, we're going to dive into all of them on the podcast today, so let's get into it. Welcome to the world's #1 AI podcast, AI Chat. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Make sure that you go to AIbox.ai, link in the show notes, to join the waitlist for our new AI platform. We're going to be launching an incredible platform that allows you to build anything you want with workflows in AI. So you're able to chain together ChatGPT and image generators and audio generators to make really powerful apps for your organization, or you can host them on our marketplace and actually generate royalties from them. So make sure to go to AIbox.ai and join the waitlist. In addition, if you like the podcast, if you could do me a massive favor and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps me be able to get better guests on here as they check the reviews to see how you guys are liking it. So if you could please do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. Google is enhancing its AI-driven search generative experience, their SGE thing, by essentially incorporating the ability to create images from text prompts, which is, of course, the same thing that Bing has been doing and that ChatGPT is doing. And ChatGPT and Bing are both leveraging DALL-E 3 to do this. But Google is also essentially introducing the capacity for users to adjust drafts in SGE, letting them modify length and tone to cater to specific requirements. So essentially, so one thing is the images and the other thing is text drafts. So while you're in there, you can sit there and kind of work on a specific document. It's more than just what they were doing before, which is just search. You just ask it a question and give you sort of the response. Now they're getting into okay, you're trying to build a document or a piece of content, we'll kind of work with you in Google itself to do that, which I think is very interesting. I think this new kind of suite of capabilities comes as the latest installment in a whole line of really quick updates they've pushed out that have kind of helped this whole search generative experience thing they're doing and the whole evolution of that. I think over the recent months, Google has showcased a bunch of really interesting new features. They have AI authored summaries. They're crafting definitions of, different obscure terms and stuff. They're unveiling a whole bunch of other functionalities, which are kind of helping with coding specifically. Competing with GitHub's Copilot. And then, of course, they have a whole bunch of interesting features that are baked in with traveling and product search enhancements. So, if you're looking for flights between different places, kind of honestly, a lot of it is what you'd find with ChatGPT and all their plugins. But now Google's doing it. And I think it is important because previously ChatGPT was the only one doing it. It was super cool. And now that Google's doing it, I think Google has some advantages here. Number one, I, for one, always search for flights on Google Flights because, I don't know what airline's the best. somehow I feel like Expedia and like all the other, travel agencies are ripping me off. It's not as bad as I think, but I always get that feeling and I'm like, oh, Google's like an unbiased, it's just going to tell me like the best price on everything. I don't know how true that is. The other thing I do is we'll like search for it on Google, because I appreciate the way Google Flights will like allow me to like change my date and be like, oh, if I go a day earlier, it's less, or if I go a day later, it's, more, blah, 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 and see that kind of data. And sometimes even if I book it on, let's say, Expedia because I found the cheapest deal there, I would just like search for it on Google. So I think because of that, a lot of people are like me. A lot of people are plugged into Google using it for searches. And so now that all these new features are coming out, they're going to be using all of this new AI that like OpenAI previously was trying to kind of steal the limelight by having all these cool AI search features. I think Google's going to steal a lot of the thunder from them there. That being said, of course, ChatGPT does so many things that I've never used Google for. I think it really comes down to like the consumer habits. And if my consumer habit is when I look for flights, I go to Google, I probably will keep doing that, even if like ChatGPT has a way where I think maybe they also made it a little too complicated. It's like, if I want to look for flights on ChatGPT with a natural language, which is like a cool concept, right? You could be like, hey, I want something like in the summertime somewhere in Europe with, 2 to 3 people and like for like, 1 to 2 weeks. And then it can find you a bunch of cool options. Like that's conceptually cool, but the way ChatGPT did it, where you got to like download the Kayak plugin and you got to like make sure to enable the plugin before you do that specific search. It's just like you just go to Google and you just say the exact same thing and it doesn't need you to enable or download anything. It's just going to give you the data. So I think removing that friction is one thing that Google is going to do that's going to kind of help push them ahead. I think for the whole AI image creation thing, users essentially now can submit a prompt, and that's, they could get it to do a drawing, a photograph, a painting, whatever, and Google is going to present a set of 4 resulting images. They're copying this right from everyone. Like I think Midjourney did this, and then DALL-E and whatever. So that's nothing new. But essentially, then users can download the images, or they can kind of refine their prompt and get a fresh batch. Similar to what you would do with most other AI image generating platforms. So I think what's really interesting here is that this is going to be on Google image search soon. So like imagine you're searching for an image of something, but it also can generate images, which I think maybe now some people will be like, oh, AI generated images are bad, I'm not interested. But like honestly, give this time. Like Midjourney, I think can do some really incredible image generation. And if you searched on Google Images and it gave you like, okay, here's like a whole bunch of Google images that you're looking for, but like here's 10 that are exactly what you're looking for, AI generated, and maybe they say they're copyright free or something else, right? They do the Adobe thing. I think it could be very interesting, and to see kind of where that goes. So in any case, addressing the concerns around the potential misuse of AI for like inappropriate images, which is, of course, something that Meta and Bing have been exploited for in the past. Google has set the age bar at 18 years old for using this image generating feature. And additionally, Google is, they're essentially telling everyone to be responsible. They're, with the way that they're using all of these tools. And they're trying to do things that, would obviously stop you from generating images that they call, quote, harmful, misleading, or explicit, or, those which are breaking other AI guidelines. So I think Google is preemptively essentially kind of like forestalling the creation of images, which of course are just like deep fakes, right? Photorealistic faces of public figures doing things they shouldn't be doing. And I think that's kind of like the big thing that a lot of people like to use these AI image generators for. It's like, oh my gosh, like, Donald Trump with a gun robbing a bank, Joe Biden running down the road, throwing grenades. Like they'll just say like crazy stuff like that and think it's funny. But of course, it gets to a little bit of a tricky situation. I think the world is realizing right now we have global conflicts going on, and, having a very easy way to use something like Google or Meta to create a lot of deep fakes can be dangerous, right? Like even in the conflict that's coming out of Israel, I've seen all sorts of, fake news and propaganda of images that get debunked saying something specific is happening in that conflict that is not. So definitely an area that, Google doesn't want to get swept up in. And so I think they're trying to essentially be, proactive in that regard. So Google acknowledges that like any AI tool, this new product is not flawless. And so to get user feedback, they've incorporated reporting channels for any technological hiccups or misuses. And they've also expressed confidence in their filtration system. Obviously, Google's been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. I think they have the technology to make sure that everything's being filtered correctly. And they did say that because of this, though, users might experience more blocks than anticipated. And, adding another layer of transparency, the AI created images are going to include metadata and invisible watermarks, which is powered by SynthID, a tool which was jointly, unveiled by Google Cloud and Google DeepMind. Essentially, they generate an image, there's an invisible watermark that you can't see, but they know it was AI generated, which is essentially to help labeling in the future. So on the contextual front, this kind of updated draft writing feature that they've also added can now adjust its output, its tone, its length. And honestly, I don't know why, but the length thing is something that ChatGPT has never been good at. So I think that's kind of cool. I think both the image and the draft writing functionalities are equipped with some export options, which is kind of cool, right? Like you generate it and then you export it. And it's kind of facilitating seamless transfers to Google's Workspace apps, or you can save the images directly to Google Drive, right? Of course, I want to make you fill up your Google Drive. All of these features, I think, are really important and really useful for users. So I'm excited to see how this kind of progresses. Google really is doing a great job, I think, pulling out some great features. Are they at the front of the pack? Are they at the behind? Like, we can debate those kind of things, but I do give them, credit for pulling out features and making big moves. So very interesting to see how this whole Google's search generative experience is going to evolve in the future.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure you check out our Discord channel and also our Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast, where we can actually share software tools, prompts that we're using in everyday AI. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.